Greetings, my fellow freedom sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful Swampy Mega of South Florida. And today's date, Wednesday, December 27th, 2017. Ooh, quiet out here in Fort Lauderdale, raining. But, I like it. Pretty mellowed. Yep, 2018 is just around the corner. Interesting indeed. Everyone has their achievements, everyone has their failures, and in between. That's how life is, but doesn't mean you should forfeit or give up. Alright, I'm at CJ's Java Lounge, located at 400 Southwest 1st Avenue, Suite 1, along the New River of Fort Lauderdale, in the New River Yacht Club, southwest section of the Andrews Avenue Bridge. So, I just decided to do some topics. Why not? Always catches my eye, and I'll be saying that plenty of times to the ones that know me. Well, this one came from Wire.com, originally from Jason Vagone. It's here, World War II's best codebreaker was a woman. There's a picture here of William and Elizabeth Smith Friedman. As it reads, one married couple was responsible for the foundation of modern code breaking and the principles that gave the NSA a head start in cryptanalysis. Though the husband, William Friedman, is usually apportioned the lion's share of the credit, his wife, Elizabeth Friedman, was in every way his equal. During World War II, both worked under total secrecy, and only now, we are learning about Elizabeth's critical work uncovering the secrets of Nazi spies and the cracking the codes of the notorious doll lady suspected for working at the Japanese. Valerie Dickinson whirled around on the two FBI men and tried to scratch out their eyes. It was January 21st, 1944. The agents stalked out the vault at the Bank of New York, waiting for Dickinson to walk in and open her safe deposit box. As soon as she did, unlocked a drawer that contained $15,900 in cash. The FBI agent said they had a warrant for her arrest. Dickinson shouted that she didn't know why. She was 50 years old, a widow, a frail-looking 95-pound woman with brunette hair. Sorry about that. She made such a kicking commotion that the men had to pick her up by the armpits and carried her away. That's from The Woman Who Smashed Codes. Came out this year. FBI arrested Dickinson because of 5 suspicious letters that had been previously intercepted by postal inspectors and forwarded to the Bureau. The letters talked about dolls and the condition of the dolls, some of which were damaged English dolls, foreign dolls, a doll hospital, and a Siamese dancer doll torn in the middle. The first of the 5 letters read in part, "You asked me to tell you about my collection. A month ago, I had to give a talk to an art club, so I talked about my dolls and figurines. The only new dolls I have are these 3 lovely new Irish dolls. One of these dolls is an old fisherman with a net over his back. Another is an old woman with her wood on her back, and the third is a little boy." The letter has been addressed to Senora Inez Lopez Bellinari in Buenos Aires. No such person existed. The letters were returned to the address listed on the envelope, the address of one of Dickinson's customers, Miss Mary E. Wallace in Springfield, Ohio, who was confused to read the letter as she had not written it. Dickinson owned a doll shop on Madison Avenue in New York and had developed a reputation for artistry. She sold dolls for as much as $750 a piece, yet the Bureau discovered that she had fallen into debt after the death of her husband, and she was a member of the Japanese American Society, and she had visited the West Coast in January 1942, immediately after Pearl Harbor. The FBI tested the shapes of ink on the letters against Dickinson's seized typewriter and confirmed a match. The Bureau's investigation also revealed social ties between Dickinson and Japanese consular officials. After the agents arrested Dickinson in January 1944, a federal prosecutor took up the case. Edward C. Wallace, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. Wallace had worked with Elizabeth Smith. Friedman is in the smuggling days and hoped to get her opinion on the doll lady's letters. But first, he called the supervisor of the FBI's New York office and asked if the Bureau had any objection to showing Elizabeth the letter. Within the FBI, the prosecutor's request provoked a remarkable exchange of at least 8 phone calls, teletype messages, and memos that traveled up the chain from the FBI's New York office to Washington and ultimately to the desk of J. Edgar Hoover. The gist of these communications was that the prosecutor, Edward Wallace, wanted Elizabeth and spoke highly of her. According to Mr. Wallace, an FBI agent in Washington wrote a memo to Hoover's deputy. Mrs. Freeman and her husband, who is cryptographer for the Army, are recognized as the leading authorities in the country and have written numerous books on the subject. The FBI agents worried that Elizabeth would siphon publicity from the Bureau, stealing its spotlight. The agency reluctant to speak of Elizabeth as an independent analyst separate from her husband, although no one had ever discussed involving William in the case. The supervisor of the FBI's New York office fretted that the Freeman's parole might be an event of a successful espionage prosecution attempt to lay claim for any work that they might have performed in this connection. New York office sent Hoover a teletype on March 18, 1944, advised as to submission question letters to Elizabeth Freeman for examination. Hoover responded with a dismissive shrug of a memo considering the project to submit the documents to Mrs. Freeman. There appears no point is to be gained by multiplying the numbers of examiners, but he posed no formal objection. So U.S. Attorney Wallace went ahead and sent Elizabeth the Doll lady letters, and Elizabeth analyzed them and crystallized her thoughts into a 5-page letter before traveling to New York at the Fed's expense to discuss the case with Wallace in person. My dear Mr. Wallace, Elizabeth began in her letter. Within the last 2 days, I have spent a few hours examining the Dickinson letter. I am setting forth here some queries and statements which may be accepted for what they are worth. Mindful of your statement on the telephone that you hope to obtain leads and that you understand that the code in the letters is the intangible type of method not susceptible to scientific proof. After making it clear this was not the usual sort of cryptanalysis that she did, this was only her opinion. Elizabeth went on to discuss what the doll lady was really talking about when she talked about dolls. The letters, she said, were a textbook example of open code, a way of communicating secretly out in the open without necessarily arousing suspicion. Granddaughter's doll in one letter might refer to a U.S. ship that had been damaged at Pearl Harbor and it was being repaired. Family meant the Japanese fleet. English dolls meant 3 classes of English ships, such as the battleship, battlecruiser, destroyer. Where Dickinson wrote, one of these 3 dolls is an old fisherman with a net over his back. Another is an old woman with wood on her back, and the third is a little boy. She probably meant one of these 3 warships is a minesweeper, and another warship is with a superstructure, and the third ship is a small warship. Destroyer, Elizabeth guessed. Torpedo boat, auxiliary warship. Elizabeth also pointed out that the street number of the address in the 5 letters. Senora Inez O'Higgins Street, Buenos Aires, was given as 5 different numbers. 1414 O'Higgins, 2563 O'Higgins, etc., suggesting that the messages were never meant to reach their destination and were intended to intercept en route in an airline pouch or a censorship office by a friendly access confederate. The Elizabeth letters show her analytical brilliance. It is also her native cautiousness, her reluctance to say anything that couldn't absolutely be proven. Words in the open code can have multiple meanings. She did not want to testify in court for this reason. Hoover saw it differently. To him, the vagueness of an open code was an advantage, not a disadvantage, enabling his agents to give the more extended estimates and alternate possibilities during cross-examination. The FBI gathered other damning evidence against Dickinson, including the unexplained cash and her relations with Japanese officials, and the government charged Dickinson with espionage as a spy for the Imperial Japanese government. The charge carried the death penalty. As far as anyone knew, Dickinson was the first woman to be accused of espionage on American soil since World War II start. So far, wrote the Washington Sunday Star on this side of the story, Mrs. Dickinson is a woman spy of this war. During her court appearance in New York in May 1944, Dickinson looked subdued, wore a black pin with imitation white flowers, and twisted handkerchief behind her back with black gloved hands, glancing in the courtroom at the FBI agents and prosecutors and reporters. "Who are all these people?" she said. When the prosecutor spoke, she even yawned decorously behind a hand, the Washington Times Herald reported. Dickinson pleaded guilty. After her sentencing 3 months later, she denied that she was a spy, breaking down in court and swearing that she didn't know a battleship or any other ship except that it's larger. She ended up with 10 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. Although through these proceedings, Elizabeth stayed out of the public eye. When the Doll Lady case was over, the conviction won. The FBI, as always, informed the press of its heroism, feeding the dramatic details of the war's #1 woman spy to reporters. What made her become a Japanese spy? Asked the Star. One FBI who questioned her advanced the idea that she was an introvert, embittered by life, the frustration of childlessness. Elizabeth was not mentioned in the coverage. The article said variously that the code had been cracked by the FBI, cryptographers, or a check with the Navy. Hoover himself wrote about the Doll Lady in the American magazine, calling her one of the cleverest woman operators I have encountered. Cultured, businesslike cunning, and despite her 45 years of age, most attractive, she presented one of the most difficult problems in detection the FBI has tackled in this war. And while readers learned of the Doll Lady's treachery from Hoover, the woman who analyzed Doll Lady's letter in her spare time quietly as a side project returned to her primary task of hunting Nazi spies. Interesting story. Hey, I learned about this today as well. You'd be surprised, my friend. A lot of folks, so many things you can do. Somebody could be even surprised yourself. So you gotta pay homage to Elizabeth Smith Friedman for this. More history lesson, I would say, right? Absolutely. Pretty damn cool. Even though I'm not crazy about J. Edgar Hoover. But sometimes you may use the enemy's tools too. I collecting information like that when he heard about how the Nazis were doing it. Had some of his agents went over there and learned the tactics. So, double-edged sword, of course. But one thing for sure, my friends, you never know. There's all those folks out there who are snitches to the state expect to get this blowback in your face. Because look what Miss Freeman did. And many others out there are capable of being codebreakers. So, all right, that's pretty cool. Nice little story there. All right, next one here. Came from Activist Post by Isaac Davis. 5 cartels that rule America and the world. Americans have been programmed to fight amongst themselves along partisan political lines, always pointing the finger at the other side of the phony left-right paradigm. Divide and conquer is a broad tactic being used to keep people from recognizing, focusing on, and targeting the truly diabolical agents in our world who hold real power over all of us at once. We're not ruled by Republicans or Democrats, but rather by not-so-hidden hands of institutions, which have consolidated a tremendous amount of power. Our world is deeply covered by these cartels, and they impact every area of our lives, constantly maneuvering to make more and more dependent on them for our needs. In short, these are the organizations which rule over us. These are the great forces in our world which prevent positive change and ensure that we continually slide downward into tyranny and self-destruction. Number 1, the international bank cartel. Geopolitical financial elite have for centuries been organizing to consolidate the mechanisms of wealth into the hands of a very few. The Rothschilds are a popular face of this cartel. But the banking and financial corruption goes far, far beyond their influence. The few who understand the system will either be so interested from its profits or so dependent of its favors, there will be no opposition from that class. Rothschild Brothers of London, 1863. Banks are in a unique position of power in our world and can generate extraordinary profits without actually producing anything. The issuance of currency and credit, they can control the amount available to the economy and create economic booms and busts, seizing titles to land, homes, businesses, and property. They hold extraordinary influence over government for their role as financiers of everything from public works to war, and enjoy extraordinary pecuniary advantage and privilege. Combine this with the influence of supranational organizations like the Bank of the International Settlements and the World Bank, and you realize that the world is on the cusp of falling into the greatest trap of all time. The bank cartel is a primary source of war, destabilization, and military-grade destruction in our world today. Number 2, the medical establishment. Human health has been hijacked by the medical establishment, which forces people into extraordinarily expensive programs of dependence on insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies, and other health service providers. Interestingly, the medical industry is also a major cause of premature death for Americans, as malpractice, drug overdoses, botched procedures, and poor patient care contribute to these statistics. Medical errors alone are the third leading cause of death in the U.S. Additionally, the government deliberately serves these corporate interests by limiting and preventing information access to services and healing modalities, which may produce positive results without dependence on hospitals and physicians. Furthermore, this cartel actually contributes not only to human misery by pumping deadly drugs like opioids into our world, scheming to get as many people as addicted as possible in order to cut a greater profit. Of course, all hail to fascistic healthcare, right? Yeah. Number 3, the energy industry. The raping of the planet for fossil fuel energy is something that has been gone on for decades, but it's finally now beginning to create substantial blowback as environmental destruction is proven to be something that cannot be ignored any longer. The nuclear industry is perfectly content to continue the pursuit of nuclear power, even in the face of catastrophes like Fukushima, which demonstrate that nuclear energy simply cannot be contained and is a threat to all life on planet. We're witnessing major growth in sectors of renewable energy, but traditional energy industry had a long history of interfering with the release of alternative technologies, even going so far as to actively suppress technologies. The cartel has shaped the world in dramatic ways, most notably by creating a universal dependence on the automobile as a primary form of transportation, which has shaped both our cities and our mindsets. The never-ending push for oil exploration is killing the most precious environmental resources we have left, but the influence of the energy cartel is so great that it can practically buy an entire nation, such as Ecuador, where foreign oil ventures are allowed to press ever further into the Amazon. Well, that's why I always support industrialized hemp. 4, agricultural chemical producers. The industrial chemical giants have completely changed the face of farming on planet Earth within the last 75 years or so. Family farms continue to go under at a record-setting pace, and it's clear that the end game of companies like Monsanto is to own the patents to all food seed, lording over the planet where people are prosecuted for planting food crops. This is quite startling when coupled with the fact that seed biodiversity is collapsing around us. It may only be another 10 years before this end game is realized. In addition, these companies are polluting the world in incredible ways by pressing for the overuse of toxic chemicals like glyphosate and other herbicides, which are killing pollinator insects, destroying the soil, and causing horrible health problems for people living near farms. Though it's disturbing as it is. 5, the information industrial complex. This institution is the newest in our world, consisting of what is now commonly referred as big data, meaning corporations and government agencies which can collect data points on everything in our world and use this information strategically for their interests. James Corbett of the Corbett Report remarks, half-century ago, outgoing President Dwight D. Eisenhower coined the term military-industrial complex to describe the fascistic collusion between the Pentagon and America's burgeoning armaments industry. But in our day and age, we are witnessing the rise of a new collusion, one between the Pentagon and tech industries that it helped to seed, that is committed to waging covert war against people the world over. Now, in the 21st century, it is time to give this new threat a name, the information industrial complex. Corbett's recent report video explains the rise of this powerful institution in the following presentation, and it's very good. I recommend everyone to check it out. It says here, final thoughts, there are very few, if any, honest sponsors or organizations working in earnest to spread the benefit of industry, technology, and prosperity in such a way that actually eliminates the great problems humanity faces, such as hunger, environmental stewardship, health, freedom, and more. These are the cartels which represent the greatest threat to our collective well-being and prosperity of future generations. Exactly. But you got a lot of folks out there, they want us to depend on them. Like, we're the imbeciles, they're the geniuses. You have to see that bigger picture, folks. It's been going on for a very long time. Now you call it Bear Santa right now. All the petrochemicals and all the garbage, and they try to spy on us. People are addicted to their cell phones and talk garbage on their text messages. And we all have our human errors, including myself. I can boldly admit that. But one thing we gotta say, folks, it's a lot more than what is happening, and we need to really utilize these areas, like social media and all that, to spread the information and truth. Yeah, censorship is going to be happening, but we got to be like cockroaches. You can't take us all out. So there's a big spiritual warfare going on as well. I chat with a colleague of mine who was from Britain. We had a good discussion. Actually, one of the people who worked there introduced me to him, talking about conspiracy theories, and we hit off pretty damn well. Good chat. Like his style. We have a lot in common. And we talk about things like this all the time. Like this. So like me and many other people all the time. That's why you gotta beware of divide and rule. Be cautious when you get the knee-jerk reaction on certain words. Buzzwords. A la Charlottesville, white supremacy, white power, neo-Nazis. They pick a knee-jerk reaction. And not getting involved, avoiding synthetic movements. I don't have to say it, because a lot of you guys can figure it out, because I talk about these organizations in the past. And being observant, trying to find alternative ways. Like I say, industrialize hemp fuel. That should be the next thing. And be off the grid, solar power. Now that's happening. We do that. That's not a crime, because there's no victim. But some companies get offended, and you want you to go to jail, piss on them. Jury nullification. Action speaks louder than words. We gotta be like those individuals who stand for what's right, such as Thomas Paine, Rosa Parks. We can go on. Just give you a couple. That's right, my friends. It can be overturned. It takes a matter of time. You can make that difference. One step at a time. All right. Well, this was interesting coming down here. It was from the Digital Journal. And about crackdowns on e-bikes. E-bike crackdown in New York City. Spurs delivery worker concerns. By Karen Graham. New York light delivery robots in San Francisco, electric bike delivery drivers in New York City are being targeted by city officials who claim that they are a menace to pedestrians and drivers. Oh, really? In New York City? Please. Starting in 2018, a crackdown on the Zippy bike will take place. City dwellers in San Francisco after issues with delivery robots clogging the sidewalks, pushed by city officials to pass strict regulations in early December to reduce the number of delivery robots to 3 per company. Oh yeah, my nanny, please help me. Teach me how to wipe my behind, right? And I'll continue on here. It says here, now city dwellers in New York City are having the same complaints, except this time it's delivery workers using e-bikes. Bicycles modified to be powered by electricity. E-bikes look similar to the regular bikes, but have a motor that can propel them 20 miles an hour or more, depending on the model. E-bikes have proven to be very popular with the legions of delivery people who work for restaurants, many of them who are poor immigrants. Under the current city law, bikes are illegal to own and sell, but riding them on the street can lead to a fine up to $500. So this means the bike must be ridden on the sidewalks. But in order to make enough money, the delivery drivers must be fast and efficient. And this is where bicycles speeding down the sidewalk at 20 miles an hour can be a menace, especially if the driver is not careful. Restaurants also require that their delivery drivers provide their own transportation and make them responsible for any fines they have happened to receive while working. So an investment in an electric bike can be expensive to someone at the bottom of the economic scale. According to the new law, according to Mayor de Blasio, the Bend Over Bob to New World Order, Strong Cities Network's butt lug. Starting in 2018, businesses that have employees that use e-bikes are also subject to a fine of $100 for first offense and $200 for each subsequent offense, according to Mayor Bill de Blasio. Electric bikes are illegal to operate on our city streets, and those at the top of the food chain need to be held accountable. City spokesman Austin Feehan said, instead of merely targeting riders, we're going after businesses that look the other way to leave their workers shoulder to the fine. Such a nanny. I want him to be my babysitter. I want de Blasio to be my Mr. French. That pathetic piece of trash that he is. And while many New Yorkers are going to be delighted that the e-bikes are off the sidewalks, there will be some hard feelings. Cycling advocacy groups have challenged the city to produce data showing whether the e-bikes pose an unusual danger compared to other vehicles. In the realm of enforcement, data needs to be the impetus, says Carolyn Samparno, the Deputy Director of Transportation Alternatives, an advocacy organization. I don't think enforcement is the solution to the problem we're trying to solve. Of course. How come you're going to have some clown, some guys in suit and ties or pretty dresses and telling you they're smarter because they're attorneys? Give me a break. That's what called totally dumbed down, founded. Well, remember, New York's a nanny state. New York City. You know, I love New York. I love New York. Big brother, take me away, right? This is just an example. And I have a feeling it's going to be spreading like fire to other cities because they want to be like them. You know what? Don't bring to my city. I will say, you get the hell out of here because you're contaminating space, you bunch of fruitcakes. Weak and pathetic buffoons that you are. All you folks up there in San Francisco, New York City are freedom-loving individuals. Your natural-born rights are inalienable, as long as you interfere with others' affairs. Yes, riding these particular tools and equipment is everyone's responsibility. Safety is everyone's responsibility. I'm not going to argue about that, but this is their solution. Punishing people for making a living, hurt their revenue. This is a form of neo-mercantilism at its finest. Hey, de Blasio, remember what happened in Detroit? Because you guys think you're smarter than everybody else. You're so pathetic anyway. Do whatever you do, don't come down to South Florida. You be contaminating space. I might just call you a globalist Uncle Tom, or a friend of your clan, or a friend of your best friends, okay? To me, you're pointless. You're just like Bloomberg and Giuliani. Yippee yappy yahoo, all right? Cool. So, I'm going to take a quick breather. Be right back. All right, cool. So we're going to do one more here. A little philosophical, I would say. This is by Brandon Smith from the BobLivingstonLetter.com. Human courage and kindness stands as obstacles to the void. Among liberty activists, there is a rather universal consensus on what ails our nation. We understand that there is a concerted and deliberate effort by the establishment to undermine individual rights and constitutional protections. We understand that there is a coordinated effort by international finance to destabilize our economy and siphon wealth from the middle class until it shrivels up and die. We understand that there is an organized plan to radicalize the public along ideological lines and pit them against each other. We understand that geopolitics and regional wars are exploited to distract us from underlying issues. There is not very much debate over these realities. The evidence is overwhelming. However, there is a constant disagreement among activists on solutions to these problems. But there are several reasons why this conflict persists. Let's examine them. Ease versus struggle. This is one conflict that I don't think many people recognize or pay attention to, but it stands as a key weakness that derails effective action. There's a distaste among some liberty activists for the idea of self-sacrifice and struggle in achieving freedom. The reality is most fights are won through persistence and force of will. There are no shortcuts to defeating tyranny. There are no secret weapons. There is only indomitable spirit. That is, it doesn't matter if you have a movement of 100 people or 100 million. Any goal is achievable, but as long as you accept the cost of pain and sacrifice. In my years working in the movement, I've seen hundreds of poorly conceived silver bullet solutions rise to prominence and then fail on disappear entirely. Every case, there's a period of overblown excitement, while practical strategies are completely ignored. A perfect example would be on the current love affair among subculture of activists with cryptocurrencies. The concept of rebellion on a virtual level is certainly alluring to those who feel real world work and real world fight. A fantasy of defeating the establishment with ease appeals to those who fear struggle. This is something that the power that be take full advantage of. To defeat considered technocratic centralization requires nothing more than willingness to risk everything with the promise of reward. The sooner people realize there is no easy path to a free society, the sooner we can act effectively. It's like movements. That's another movement. Things don't happen overnight. Everything can be done by steps. That's what the whole information war is about. Nothing's going to occur overnight. And I can say this because I know when I got involved with the Ron Paul movement, I had the same ordeal. But I can say this, many of us still stay touch base today. And I'm pursuing it. Because I'm principles. And people got to focus on your principles. Expect potholes. Getting hit by potholes, hurdles, and all that. That's the name of the game. So something like this, like Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu of the Wars was something to check out. I will proceed. Thinking in the present versus thinking ahead. One truth I consistently try to point out to activists is that they may never see the benefits of the fighting they do today. They must fight with the expectation that they will not see the light at the end of the tunnel. Successful freedom fighters do not fight for themselves so much as they fight for the next generation. They fight so that their children can live without tyranny, but not necessarily so they can live without tyranny. This idea seems to bewilder some activists, and I blame this on the self-serving nature of our society and this addiction to immediate gratification. Yeah, the magic lamp theory, I call it. Even among the best of us, there's a tendency to only plan in for now and seek solutions in the now. Real rebellions requires long-term tactics. Deeply rooted tyrannies are whittled down over time. Sometimes over the course of multiple generations, they are not defeated overnight. Absolutely. Optimism versus nihilism. Or nihilism, yeah. I've seen many liberty analysts attacked as doom and gloomers. This accusation is usually wielded by ignorant people. With little understanding on how freedom movement functions, they do not function on doom or fear porn, but on a healthy dose of reality coupled with optimistic philosophy that knowledge is power. What the skeptics do not grasp is that they work to comprehend and intricacies of a crisis because we have enough optimism to foresee that the crisis can be stopped. We are not doom and gloomers. We are actually issuing a rallying cry because we know that doom can, in fact, be averted. The real doom and gloomers are actually the nihilists. The people that blindly dismiss the possibility of victory. These are the people that do not want to hear about strategies or solutions. They only seek to criticize because they don't have the intelligence to offer up a solution of their own. These are the people who are constantly saying, "Yeah, you've told us about the problem, but what are you going to do about it?" When they should be asking themselves, "What am I going to do about it? What am I going to do about it?" Absolutely. But folks like that, they like to complain, but don't have an idea, don't have a solution, don't want to take action. So usually I tell folks this: if you complain, don't take action, then shut up. So folks like that, they're like, you have that schlep rock attributes from Pebbles and Bam Bam. Wowzy, woo. The guy looks at this guy schlep rock, looks at a sculpture that crumbles right at his feet. But I'll continue on here. Isolation versus community. It is perhaps the defining argument of many years as an analyst and macroeconomist that is something I continue to fight for this day. The greatest weakness within the liberty movement, in my opinion, is a refusal to take necessity of community seriously. Whether because of laziness, ease, because of paranoia, or because of too much exposure to Hollywood fantasies of the survival world, many people have adopted the philosophy that preparation for crisis is at best done in isolation. In other words, the lone wolf mentality. I can say I have that too at times. I admit that. In almost every historic or modern societal collapse on the record, it has been organized communities of people with necessary skill sets that have the most success in survival. And it is these communities that are most dangerous threat to oligarchies. So the question becomes, what do you hope to accomplish? Do you seek to survive? The community is the best possible option. Do you seek to fight against an encroachment of authoritarianism? Then the numerous volunteer communities prepared for disaster are the best weapon. Does the nail that stands up get hammered down? Possibly, but without community, you ensure that you will always be a nail, never the hammer. Isolated preparedness is a recipe for failure. And that is true. I might be a lone wolf at times, but one thing I would like to do too is network with people. That's the whole thing. Like I've been in movements, not fully fledged involved, but I network and talk to them, and we join forces on certain topics. So that's a good thing to do. Solidarity in those areas, toss the differences to the side. Localization versus centralization. As much as liberty activists rail against the problem of centralization, they tend to fall victim of their own centralization schemes. Community only matters when it is within arm's reach. This means that internet-based communities, while encouraging because they can reveal our true numbers and makes us feel as though we're not alone, also tend to centralize our activism within a false framework, isolating us more than uniting us. A web-based community is not a community, just a web-based solution. It's not a solution. If you're not utilizing the web in part as a tool to build localized community in the real world or a localized economy in the real world, then you're wasting your time with web activism. What internet activism does do, unfortunately, give people a false sense of security, and it prevents them from pursuing real community in the place they live. I heard thousands of occasions from activists who claim that no one around them is awake or aware. They claim that they are alone in the midst of hundreds of thousands or even millions of people. This is nonsense. In every part of the country, I found liberty-minded people in droves, often in the same town or city within easy driving distance. And people who claim that they are alone are usually the people who never try to look or to organize. Why? Because that's hard work, and the virtual community on the internet is so much easier. And that's correct. And I'll say this too. I'll be very sincere. I don't have that mindset for me. Maybe in the past, but I've taken the initiative on sharing stuff and actually talking to people in person. If you're hanging out one place trying to address it and they just ignore you, and no one wants to learn, if you hang out at the same place over and over again, then you're wasting your energy. You got to be the explorer. You got to go out, roam around other areas within your communities. Then you can start mingling with people. Talk about things. Talk about finesse. Use it with finesse. Don't use passion or screaming and yelling and all that good stuff. You got to use, be the rabbi, be the teacher. Then you never know. They may be talking to you about a couple of things. I had one person, about a year ago, asked me about the Banksters and the Rothschilds. He came to me and we had a good little chit chat about that. I think that's awesome. Because like I said, folks, we're not alone in this battle. The problem is We're always going to have people, the doubtful Thomases of the world. It's nothing new. It's been going on for millenniums. So definitely go out there, be the explorer, be the rabbi, the teacher, explore. Go to a place you haven't been yet. Just start talking to people. It wouldn't hurt. You know, don't go out there with your chest sticking out because it's absurd. There's some people out there who are activists think that you should give them a ticker tape parade. Come on. Totally ludicrous. So I want to do this here to the source of all freedom. Beyond the internalized conflict within liberty movements, there is a defined methodology at stake. The gravitational pull that strengthens communities is the fuel that drives optimism and respect for the future. The thing that makes us all more than what we seem to be on the surface. The thing that catches authoritarians off guard is our propensity for courage and human kindness. With these two things, any fight against tyranny is destined to implode. Endeavor requires risk, and all risk requires courage, or perhaps stupidity, but courage can often be making a mistake as stupidity. The greatest endeavor in the history of mankind is the endeavor to live free. There's the only few things in the world actually worth fighting or dying for. It follows such a fantastic goal would require ultimate risk. Courage is the willingness to take risk while knowing full well the consequences of failure. In some cases, courage means taking action while knowing there will be consequences even in success. Often there are no benefits to the courageous beyond the knowledge that they have benefited others. The fight is not about profit. The fight is not about personal survival. The fight is about something much more, something difficult to define but initiatively felt. Taking terrible risks with intentions of benefiting others, many of them not even born yet, requires human kindness. A self-absorbed sociopath and narcissist will never achieve greatness because greatness requires action that are counter-initiative to self-preservation. A person who embraces moral relativism will also never accomplish much for the future. Kindness requires moral resolve, not moral flexibility. It is these two characteristics that defeat tyrants, and so it will be these two characteristics that tyrants will seek to undermine. It is difficult to conquer a people when they are not afraid of sacrifice. It is difficult to isolate people with selfishness when they are driven by their empathy inherent in kindness. All solutions, all practical strategies rely on the existence of these two forces within the movement. As 2017 comes to a close, and it is my hope that every liberty activist prepares for the most dangerous days ahead, but above all else, their preparations must flow from the foundation of struggle and self-sacrifice, foresight and endurance, community and practically courage and kindness. If not, then really, what is the point? Absolutely correct. So I always beware of these synthetic movements. Keep it real, organic, natural, and use finesse. Use homage. May have differences with some people. Folks from different political spectrums. But if you have something in common, you can hit it off. I've done it, and it's awesome. That's the name of the game, my friends. They want us divided so we can be ruled upon. And the truth of the matter is, when it comes to liberty, you do it for everybody, including your enemies. Because if you let your enemies' freedom be deprived, you just create a precedent. Thomas Paine made that quote on that matter. So this is why, when I tell folks, your rights are natural born. You are free to do what you will, as long as you don't violate others. This is the motive of liberty, peace, and freedom. We can do it here to our communities and spread it worldwide. Don't let these vultures tell you how to think, how to act, when to wipe your behind. I hear all these white privileges and all that. No, I don't need to tell the government to tell me how to think. I don't need to ask them questions. Hey, can I make love to my woman at such and such time? Those are privileges. Get permission. I don't need permits for that. You don't need it, regardless of what you look like. Stand together. You can achieve a lot. But always keep it real. And that is it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share this throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or you're something that's interesting you may want to check out, Whatever you do, please address your correspondences with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, Minds.com, FutureNet.club, Patreon.com/LookALike3, 3 Eyes, Gab, which is a free speech version of Twitter, gab.ai. I don't know what's going on with scene.life. Hopefully that will be fixed. In addition, you can email me at lookalike3@gmail.com or your encrypted ones, lookalikenumbers03@protonmail.com. Woo, my friends, that's all for now. Once again, thank you for your time. But always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.